and a pleasure for me to introduce to you our final keynote speaker of the day. We'll finally have some Greek perspectives. We've had some Eastern European perspectives. We've had some Asian perspectives. The speaker, who of course I'm about to introduce, is Dr. Marietta Giannakou, who is really, it's a very extensive career that she's had, so I'll try to do justice to it by at least pointing to some of the most important highlights of her career. But of course, it's difficult in such a limited time to touch on everything. Ms. Giannakou was trained as a neurologist and a psychiatrist, studying at the University of Athens. She was one of the founding members of the Nea Demokratia youth organization in 1974. In 1984, she became member of the European Parliament. Since then, she has held many distinguished positions, such as Vice President of the Committee on Women's Rights and member of the Committee of Social Affairs and Employment, just to name a few. She has also served on the National Hellenic Parliament and was member of the Committee on Foreign Relations, Human Rights, and Common Security and Defense. She served as Minister of National Education and Religious Affairs. Ms. Giannakou was honored by the Republic of Chile with the Barano O'Higgins Medal and the Republic of Poland for her contribution as chairman of the Greek Friendship Group between the Parliament of Greece and Poland to the integration of Poland into the European Union. So I think we have a very special opportunity today to have perspectives on the one hand from Greece, on the other hand from Europe, and on the other hand from beyond. I think really your career and also your experiences have taken you really at an international level to explore the relevance of cultural diplomacy and also the ways that maybe it has been implemented or has not been implemented in terms of education, religious affairs, and beyond. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Dr. Marietta Giannakou. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for inviting me to this very important conference. Diplomacy of today is not the diplomacy as we knew 30 years before. Today, economic diplomacy is important. Public interest of member states, for example in Europe, is important, but cultural diplomacy is the most important of them, because cultural diplomacy touches all the people, the young people, the citizens, the students. They go around with the Erasmus program, for example, everyone. The EU finds itself at the crossroads as a result of an unprecedented euro crisis and its unforeseen consequences on the European economy and the welfare of European citizens. Many think that this is a fin de siècle situation that would inhibit further European integration, so that the EU is led to its demand. There are many reasons to disagree with that sort of views. First and foremost, European integration made a crucial and tangible change in international politics. Its fundamental and historical achievement rests in overcoming the cruelties and violent conflicts of the past and establishing intergovernmental institutions based on political cooperation to the mutual benefit of every participant country. This is the raison d'être of the European Union, and in many respects it has been successful indeed. Most of the Western and Eastern European states are currently members or are eager to join the EU. The liberal democratic principles prevailed across Europe, and governments and peoples alike are committed to a strong democratic acquis. This is my view, in my view, the vision that the EU should project to the world, namely the benefits of cooperation, the pursuit of common policy tasks, the convergence of societies to higher levels of welfare. Moreover, the EU has a broader and more diffused influence upon societies and cultures. It cultivates a spirit of tolerance and diversity, recognition of the significance of different cultures, philosophical, religious, and ethical values and societal traditions. The EU has never been a cultural melting pot, nor does it aspire to become one. On the contrary, cultural diversity and societal traditions of its constituent nations flourish. Meanwhile, citizens endorse a European layer in their respective informal identities and share many cultural values and practices. Hence, the European experience is particularly important for regions suffering from interstate or intrastate conflicts. It is the duty of EU bodies to transfer its political and cultural know-how and expertise to other regions of the world, especially those facing have problems of security and unrest. For example, the Arab Spring has been a more than welcoming development towards the end of terminating autarchic regimes and the spreading democracy and safeguarding the liberties and rights of people in African and Asian countries. One should not be highly optimistic with regard to immediate results. We know very well that transition to democracy, especially after the collapse of enduring dictatorship and the intensive use of violence, is a gradual and difficult process. The distinctive features of each country in the Arab Spring phenomenon, I think that the EU cultural diplomacy should entail a promotion of a set of fundamental individual rights, monitoring their enforcement through specific watchdogs and the supply of administrative and financial support essential for targeted conflict resolution action and the consolidation of democratic and peaceful practices. A huge effort must be undertaken, especially with regard to the protection of the most vulnerable in these circumstances, especially the children and women, who are primary victims in situations of high insecurity and violence. Preventing torture and trafficking should take top priority, and this is a cultural priority. Our task should be our political or cultural domination over countries experiencing major changes. Instead, we should be concerned with forcing relations and trust and respect with our neighbors around the Mediterranean Sea. Therefore, we should closely monitor the best possible outcomes of the financial and other support we deliver to these states in transition. Finally, there is an intra-European challenge relevant to recent developments. We need to take into consideration the diffusion of some offensive ideas against immigrants and other target groups. The emergence of extremist grouping and ideology should carefully be dealt with and marginalized. In times of crisis, that sort of extreme ideologies tend to be attractive and effective in mobilizing people, especially those more immediately subject to the consequences of economic downturn. It is a matter of culture to show our allegiance to the most vulnerable groups of people, to reinforce the values of tolerance and non-discrimination. How we can give, especially to these young people, people of the society of knowledge, society of technology, society of information, all these, to share with them all these ideas without to give them to think that they are in a second level people. Because this is a problem sometimes between Europeans and other people coming from not so developed countries, countries in transition period, etc. So we have to use that. We have to use young people, the exchange of young people, of students, and to use the Society of Information and Knowledge. The head of the young people in Tunisia, in Libya, in Egypt, with the mobile phone, to take photos or to call friends or to see the emails, that's the new era. We have to cooperate. On the other hand, this Society of Information is the most important revolution of the centuries. Poor people in different countries of the world can share the ideas, the information, the power, because knowledge and information is power. This is a new world who comes. In some levels, this situation is more competitive than in the past. Europe is not only the producer of innovation, of different products, of knowledge, etc. Europe and the United States. Other countries, like the BRICS countries, or other countries in the East, in Asia, everywhere, other people are ready to contribute to this new world. We have to create with them a different world. We have to give the hand, and we have to share values and ideas without eliminate the cultural basis of each one, the cultural identity. Some people, when I said about the small groups or the groups, the extremist groups, sometimes these groups, they have the fear that European Union is a general system who will destroy the cultural basis, the ethics, and the hardcore of each state. This is not true. By my experience in the European Parliament, in the European Fora, in working for the European Convention in 2003, who created the Constitution, the proposition of a Constitution for Europe, I show that with the years they come, the cultural identity of each one becomes stronger. But at the same time, tolerance and non-discrimination ideas become stronger also. And this is, in my view, the basis to keep a democratic, peaceful, and prosperous area, not only in Europe, but all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Giannakou. We now would be very happy to welcome your questions and your comments. And as always, if you could briefly introduce yourself, that would be excellent. Who would like to go first? Okay, please.
Thank you for your interesting Thank you for your interesting explanation about the cultural diplomacy of European Union. When we are throughout this afternoon, where we hearing for the lecture, we found that it's the largest European Union, then the more vary of the culture will be consisting in this union. And when you mentioned that the identity of each culture of the member state will be more stronger, I would like to know your comment how it will be work when the European Union for all the institutions will use in the decision making, because as the previous speaker from the Roman member, I think Romania Member of Parliament said that there are also very different idea in how the majority of the Western European Union and then also the Eastern member state of European Union in decision making. So how it is vary of culture then become influencing in the decision making of the European Union institution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Where is the, you say sometimes the Western Europe, the first members. For example, my country, Greece, was the first country asking for an accession in the Union of 6 already, in 61. We had a period of dictatorship, and after we became a member, the 9th member. There are some difference who comes from the past, which is very near, the past of the Eastern countries and the Western countries. But we share all the same ideas. We have in the chart of the fundamental rights and human rights, the agreement, the Convention of the Council of Europe, and the law who comes from the decisions of the European Court in Strasbourg, and now the European Union is in the way to have access to the High Court of Strasbourg for human rights. This is the basis of what? Human rights, fundamental rights, values. We share the same values for democracy. If we have different ways, different kind of food, different ways for manifestations, different history, it's not so different. If you see, well, the history of Europe, it's a mixed history. We share all in the past the same wars and the same problems. But this flourishes the situation. This is very positive, and this gives to each one of us the strong feeling that I'm a Greek, but I'm a European citizen. Sharing these ideas. This Europe is a miracle, at least, because it's the only case all over the history of the world, the history we know, that states with their free and voluntary decision, they gave authorities, they've been before in the hardcore of the state, to hyper-ethnical bodies. All the other we met in the history was by a war, by conflicts. Now, it was a peaceful way to share even the material of a war, starting from the beginning of the year of 50s, because they understood that the conflicts were a disaster for Europe. Europe created the most cruel conflicts in the world. And now what we have, 50 years of prosperity, 50 years of healthy societies. We cannot solve all the problems. We have now problems with unemployment, problems with competitiveness with other producers and other countries, yes. But nothing was automatic. Many people worked. in order to have this. So if there are different translations of what is happening here, for example, for the new countries and the countries they have been before in the Union, it doesn't mean that we cannot share the same ideas. They create the profile of European citizens. We don't live our citizenship. I think with the time this becomes stronger, the idea of the citizenship of France, of Germany, of Denmark, of any state, and in the same time we feel citizens of Europe.
Are there any other questions? We have time for a few more, so don't be shy. Yes, please.
Your last sentence of your keynote lecture, I think they have been very important to say that young people are stronger European feeling, and second, that they are more tolerant. Is that really true? And what can we do to increase it? Thank you.
First of all, it is true that young people don't know details how Europe was created, what's happened in the last 50 years. Even I was born many years after the war. I know from my parents. But for the young people of today, this is weak, the feeling what is really Europe. And having an unemployment and different problems today, many people think that what was created here in Europe was a little bit automatic, without any effort, very strong effort, etc. We have to talk with the young people. We have to make young people to understand that nothing was automatic. Nothing was easy. Everything was difficult. It was very difficult. The old enemies, especially the French and the Germans, to start working together and to arrive today in a way to discuss about common defense, common security policy, common external policy, to have a legal personality of the Union. The Union represents all the member states. For example, we have diplomatic authorities everywhere in the world now as a European Union. Who could imagine that in the few years of 50? So the young people have to share this and to understand that they have also to work, and to work in a community way, not in a conflict way, to not leave extremist ideas to create the game of politics, because we saw many phenomena today, and to understand that we can live in a peaceful and prosperous way only if we accept the others, if we have a non-discrimination policy and a tolerance way of thinking. And I think if the young people is working on this way, with the personal responsibility, but the common work, they will create a new 50 years of prosperity.
Yes, no, I agree with that.
My name is Ursula, and I'm a Polish politics student. And I would like to ask for your opinion on the concept of the European identity.
European?
Identity. European identity.
like currently there are many voices calling for a deeper European integration, like another transfer of responsibilities from the national to the European level. And if you could tell us, do you think that efforts to strengthen the European identity could help to solve, the problems of effective functioning of the European Union? Thank you.
Yes, the question of the European identity is an old question. We don't live our identity. As Polish, as French, as Germans, never. But at the same time, we have a European identity, as I described before. We share the same ideas. To have a passport with a European identity is not bad. For me, it's very good. And I'm sure that that can be reinforced, the idea we have as Polish, as Greeks, as French citizens. We have nothing to lose. We have to have more. We have nothing to lose. Coming with the others, work with the others, create an open era for the young people. For example, it's so important to see people, students, to go around with the Erasmus program, to work together, to exchange best practices. This is also a very important thing. To see how they work in another country, how people is doing, to transfer to our country. The best practices, the transfer of best practices is the best way to exchange views. If you ask me, I'm positive. Even to have a European passport with a European identity, yes. We have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose from our identity. Neither from our history or from our ethics or from our special thinking and historical memories and etc. Nothing. I'm not afraid as a European citizen. I'm feeling better with all this. We have a parliament who is directly elected by the people of Europe. We have a Council of Ministers which is a legislative body in the level of Europe. We have the Commission who gives, who have the initiative for a proposal. All the bodies are elected, are legalized by elections. We have nothing to afraid, nothing. And we have to face all these small extremistic groups. They want to create fears in the public and to make the public too afraid, the foreigners, etc. All the European countries have part of their people who lives around in other countries. We have 6 million Greeks. They live around. Probably many of them, they left the country because the country was poor after the war. But now it's positive. And it is the same with all the other people. We have Polish people, they work more than 30 years in my country. There is Greek people after the civil war in Poland. This is good. This is good for me. It's not good to be enclosed in our home, to see internally, not to see around. Today the problems are global and the solutions are more global. In our case we say European, but can we give a response to the crisis, each one separate? What is Germany in all over the world if Germany is alone? Nothing. There is nothing to nothing. I remember very well the Chancellor Helmut Kohl, who said always, the power of Germany is the smaller countries. This is the power of Germany. And the system is based in this idea. The small countries cannot create problems in the big countries, and the big countries cannot destroy the Union and the small countries. There is a balance between them, but each one, in this moment, is stronger than we ever could imagine when we were alone. It's very simple.
Okay, we have time for maybe one final question. I think here, please.
Hello, my name is Drea Yada, and I'm coming from a Japanese European background. You mentioned the difficulties that were involved in overcoming historical hostilities when creating the EU. Other regions of the world currently, and I'm thinking namely of East Asia, are also burdened by the past. When you consider the vast differences in cultural attitudes between the regions such as Europe and Asia, do you really believe that the lessons and achievements made by Europe to be realistically transferable outside of the European region?
I think the Eastern countries, countries like Japan and South Asia, is a very prosperous area. We have a history coming from the occupation by European forces in the time. But now the cooperation is very closed, not only in the level of European Parliament, but also in the level of the Council, and the Commission is very important, and we have the diplomatic authorities everywhere. It is true that it struck me, Chris Patten, who was the governor of Hong Kong, we had the discussion in the plenary in the European Parliament, and someone said only Europe, the ideas of democracy, etc., etc. And Patten said, having the experience of Hong Kong and the area there, he said, yes, but the most, the bigger disasters coming from conflicts became from Europeans, in Europe and outside Europe. This is the truth. But it's truth also that coming back to the history of Europe, with a tradition of democracy starting from the old Athena with democracy, and seeing all the past and having the experience of these incredible conflicts, we created such, as I said, a prosperous and democratic and peaceful, especially peaceful. You saw what's happened to the ex-Yugoslavia. Who could imagine that in Europe we could have such a conflict? So we have to create links, and that is the secret of the Union. Because we created links and institutions, we cannot destroy it. Because the cost of non-Europe is bigger than the cost of Europe. And this is the key, the secret key of the creation of this Europe. And if something can be created in other places of the world, in the American continent, in the South Asia continent, everywhere in the world. So this is, at least this is the point. The cost of non-Europe is very high. Nobody has the right to destroy this Europe. And nobody has the possibility to destroy this Europe. There are forces, they want to keep this era, as I said, of prosperity and knowledge and democratic rights and tolerance and non-discrimination.
All right, thank you very much. Can we have another round of applause?
Once again, let me just express my gratitude, Ms. Giannakou. It is really very, very important to have your presentation here for many reasons. I think, first of all, given the pressures that are currently on the European Union. Secondly, given also the relationship with Greece, which is getting complicated, even though I think really one of the main contributions that Greece has made also to, I guess you could say, Europe, or international relations as a whole, is actually in terms of culture and culture diplomacy. What's fascinating, I remember when I first started the ICD, I would Google culture diplomacy, and literally 5 out of, let's say, 10 of the entries that would come were former Greek ambassadors or current Greek ambassadors talking about also the impact of culture diplomacy. So for many reasons, some would also argue culture diplomacy began with actually ancient Greece. So anyway, so for many reasons, I think it was really great to have you here and also to benefit from your perspective. So maybe, since you're also the final keynote speaker of the day, could we maybe have a second round of applause for Ms. Giannakou? That would be great.